Darin and Anita on Grand Strand. A music evolution. Now, Darin and Anita with your Grand Strand Artist Spotlight.
Darin and Anita on Grand Strand. Welcome back from a commercial break, folks. And it is that time in the show for our Spotlight interview segment of the week. And Anita, I tell you, we have musicians, we have entertainers, and all those types of folks. This is our first author.
What's going on? Tell me about it.
Well, I tell you, it is Howie Thompson is who it is, and he's on the line right there. Howie, how are you, man?
I'm impressed. That's really nice. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, you're very welcome. It's cool to have an author on. Anita and I have been talking about this during the show and through the week of what are we going to talk to Howie about? Because, man, you've got tons of stuff going on out there. The new book is out right now we're going to talk about, which is called Double Shot, and it's sort of a mystery kind of thing. But you started out as a coach somewhat.
Yeah, I've coached soccer and basketball for 35 years in Connecticut, North Carolina, and then I finished up here in South Carolina. And, I was a teacher. I owned my own insurance agency for a while. But all the while, I was coaching, and I love coaching. I love coaching kids. So I've coached every age group from U10 all the way up to U19. And I coach both boys and girls, but mostly females. And I really prefer that because they listen and they learn.
See,
we
Anita?
are so much easier.
Yeah, that's right. You should work with them on the radio, Howie, because it's nothing like that, man. Let me tell you. So, Is that what you got started in? I know the first books that you had written, like it's called Overtime and A Game for All Seasons. That's what got you started with that, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Well, my very first book was, how to coach soccer, and was for parents and kids and coaches and stuff. And that's where I kind of learned a little bit about the writing business, and a tremendous blow to my fragile ego back then, because I sent out 100 copies thinking everybody is going to want this book. I was National Coach of the Year, and they're going to want this book because I wrote it. Well, I got 99 back unopened with a stamp that said, "We don't know you. Don't send us anything more." So, one gentleman was absolutely, thrilled with it, and he did, publish it. Right. And from there, Game for All Seasons really is my story in fiction, which means I got to win all the games I lost. So, as a coach. So, and it was fun, but all the girls that are in the book are fictitious girls, but they all know who they are. Right. I've gotten emails and stuff from them. And Overtime is really something that I wanted to write because I always wanted to write a basketball novel. And it's about a kid who grows up in Indiana, again, fiction, and comes back to coach's high school, comes back to coach's college, who turns D1. He takes him to the Final Four that second year and doesn't show up, has a nervous breakdown, and disappears for 10 years. When I moved down here to South Carolina, everybody talked about Fat Harold, and who he was and that kind of thing. And I didn't know who he was. I'd never been there, and finally went in and sat down next to him at the bar and said, "I'd like to write your history."
Right.
And he kind of looked at me and he said, "Well, I don't know you." I said, "Well, those people over there do, and these people over here do," and they kind of made the introduction for me. And finally, he called me up about 2 weeks later and said, "Okay, come on in. Tell me what you're going to do." So we sat and talked, and I spent over 1,000 hours with him.
Wow!
And he was extremely giving. He told me everything, probably more than he should have. But some of it made the book, some of it didn't. But the book was very successful. People loved it, and people had been waiting for it, I guess, for 10 years, which I didn't really know coming from the North. And there was a lot of controversy. Why are you, some guy from the North who kind of coach, writing a book about our icon, and I basically told him, I said, I just took the time to spend with him. Other people wanted to write it, but they didn't want to spend the time with him. They just wanted to take his history from different places and put it in a book. And so I think, when I gave him the very first copy that came off the press, he looked at me, he said, "This is great." Right. He said, I really appreciate it. And that really touched me. And he really set the stage for me, being a writer down here.
Well, sitting down with him and talking about that sort of learns you a lot about what the culture is of beach music and the shag and all that, especially through Fat Harold's, because it's such a big club there in North Myrtle Beach. Well, the next, stepping up a little bit, after that, you go on with some more music books, which is And the Bands Played On, which is the history of beach music. And I know the late Billy Scott helped with you in contacting a lot of the artists for that book.
Yeah, I was at the pavilion one night, and I was talking to H. Lee, and he says, well, you got to do a follow-up. I said, well, you can't really do a follow-up to somebody's history. I said, that's their history. There's no second book to it. He said, no, you got to do something about the band. I said, well, I don't know anybody that goes way back. He says, well, I'm good friends with Billy Scott. I'll get you the intro. And he did. I met Billy about 60 days before he passed on, and he just helped me tremendously to get to bands that I didn't know. And, he was a tremendous person.
Yeah, he is. Billy was instrumental, I think, in getting a lot of things done. Just a little bit on Billy with like even the beach music days in both states and all that kind of stuff. Well, Howie, moving on up, here's the new book that's out right now, Double Shot, and this is a murder mystery kind of thing. You have just, and listening to what you said about the books that you wrote for the sports, that was a sort of a mystery kind of thing too, which brought you into this maybe somewhat. But I thought what was unique is reading a little bit about it is that Ducks is in this and O.D. Pavilion somewhat's in this, and it takes place, World War III sort of happens. It's just some craziness going on in the 70s and the 90s. Tell us a little bit about this.
Well, I wanted to write it for 2 years, and finally got the opportunity after the band book to sit down and think about it and write it. And it's about two women and four men who were a hit team from the 70s to the 90s. They retire, and they retire to North Myrtle Beach. Unbeknownst to each other, they retire one at a time. And they all meet up on the beach at different times, and they say, well, let's get the band back together. And that's what they decide to do, is to clean up Myrtle Beach. But there's other things that happen in the book. The government comes calling again and says, we have one more deal for you. And little does the government know that they've already contracted with somebody else to knock off our own government. And the book has a lot of mystery, a lot of sex and violence. And one person said to me that I play cornhole with, he goes, I've never even heard you cuss. he said the language in that book, he said, is something else. I said, but that's the language of their genre. That's right. What they do, and that's how they talk. And it's done very well. I've got a book signing on May 17th, this Saturday, at Judcoon Chevrolet. It's doing very well, and I'm very pleased with it so far.
But well, I'm going to tell you, much success on that. And talking about the book there, I guess your wife is your editor. Cheryl is your editor with some of that?
Cheryl is the editor, and she's an ex-English teacher who's retired. She's able to help me with all my bad spelling and grammar and things like that. She did a great job on it.
Well, I tell you, Howie, you're 2013 Best Author by Grand Strand Happening as well, which is a great honor, I'm sure, too. A lot of things going on, and folks, you can find all of these books on Amazon, and we'll have links on our website as well, grandstrandshow.com, to get you to Howie and how you can get a hold of this Double Shot. You got to check it out. If you're in the beach music world, just because Ducks and O.D. Pavilions in it, you got to go get it, just for that, to find out what it's all about. How does Ducks and O.D. Pavilion have to do with World War III? That's what we got to find out, folks.
Well, it's, again, they retire here, and they get into the different groups. They get into the beach group, which hangs out at the beach.
Right.
They get into the cornhole group, which hangs out at Ducks. And they get into the beach music group, which hangs out at, O.D. Pavilion.
Right. So what that's telling me is, folks, if you're down there and you're doing any of those things, you never know who could you be standing beside of. It could be a mercenary out there somewhere. No, and that's what the local people find out. That once they realize who these people are, it's kind of too late, because things are happening that they can't control. Well, Howie, thank you so much for coming on. Anytime you've got anything to let us know about or want the folks to know about, and now you have dove into the music world to bring folks the knowledge of what Carolina beach music is and the shag as well.
And the book, like I said, the book is being promoted by a couple of bands. Mark Roberts' band did some promotion at Ducks last night for it, and so there's kind of a crossover there. and I am now writing the sequel. This is going to be a trilogy, but I'm writing the sequel right now. It's called Impact.
Cool
Well,
deal.
that was going to be my next question. My only question, because Darin's been going there. I tell you, I had to get him quiet a little bit. I was getting ready to ask what was coming up next.
Yeah, well, like I said, Impact is the sequel to this book, and then the third book, I don't really have a title yet for it, but it's going to be, how these people live in the new brave world that they've created that doesn't include a lot of what's here now.
Exactly. Well, Howie, how can they find out about you? Website, Facebook, anything like that out there?
Facebook is the best because I do a lot of promotion on there. My website's down like right now. I'm doing something to it. But they can call me, 919-824-1110, and I'm glad to talk to anybody. I've always got books in my car, so if they don't want to wait for Barnes & Noble or Amazon, I can get them a book.
Well, Howie, thank you so much. We appreciate you being on the air with us.
Okay, I appreciate you having me. That was really nice.
And there you go. Howie Thompson, folks. The book is Double Shot. You can find it from our website or on Amazon. And Anita, on with the show we go with Danny Woods taking you back to the beach.
Darin and Anita on Grand Strand. A music evolution.